thank you so much for joining the How to Make Your Own Videos workshop. If you could all keep yourselves muted, I will try not to mute us this time. And then there'll be certain portions for questions when you're more than welcome to raise any queries that you've got. Also, feel free to put them in the chat. I can see that you're all using the chat already, so that's perfect. I think that's it housekeeping-wise. So I'm just going to give a brief introduction of who I am, and then we'll do a very quick round table so you can all introduce yourselves and tell us where you've come from today. So my name is Cassandra Cavallaro. I am the Online Community and Content Officer at the SKO, which basically means writing lots of things and also making videos. I wanted to make this workshop because when I started, I was hired as a writer, but there was a gap in the team for making videos, so I had to kind of teach myself how to do it. So hopefully I've learned some things that will be helpful to you if you have to do the same thing. So I think we will just go round and introduce everyone. If we can start virtually. So at the top, Christina, could you unmute and just introduce yourself and tell us where you work? Can Christina hear us?
I think that's me, yes. I'm Christina, yeah. Christina Hall from the, I'll turn my camera on, from the Australian Biocommons. So I'm calling in from Melbourne.
Wonderful, welcome Christina, right on the other side of the world. Fabulous, great, thank you so much. Catriona Kelly. Have we got Catriona? No? Okay, let's try Elaine. Elaine Hugh.
Hi, guys. I'm from Australia as well. I'm from Australian Research Data Commons. I'm streaming from Brisbane, Australia. Nice to meet you all.
Welcome, Elaine, all the way from Brisbane. We've got Ivan. Ivan,
I'm sorry. Hello. Good afternoon, everyone.
Where are you based, Ivan?
I am from the Philippines.
Philippines. Wonderful. Welcome.
Thank you.
We've got Joe Saville.
Hi, yes, I'm also in Australia at the Australian Research Data Commons in Brisbane.
Fabulous.
Nice to see you all.
Great to see you. Yeah. Karen Wild.
Hey everyone, so I'm also calling from Australia. So I'm in Sydney. So I'm from the National Generation Facility, which is that Australia's Nuclear Science and Technology Organisation.
Great, lovely to have you here. Mariana.
Hi, I'm Mariana Foley, and I'm calling in from Germany today. I'm the Communications Officer at Eurobiomagene ERIC. We're the European Research Infrastructure Consortium for Biological and Biomedical Imaging Technologies and Services.
Great stuff. Who have we not had? Megan?
Hi, I'm an American expat living in Germany now. I'm the former communications officer for the CTA Observatory, and now I'm an independent consultant supporting the CTAO and other clients.
Great, thank you for joining us. Natalia Bateman.
Let me see. Hello?
Hello.
Can you see me? Can you hear me?
We can hear you, yeah.
Yes, hello. Yes, I am calling also from Australia, from Canberra, and I am from the Australian Air System Simulator in Canberra.
Wonderful, thank you very much. Tembela?
Hi everyone, I'm Tembela and I am in South Africa, Cape Town, and I work at South African Astronomical Observatory.
Excellent, and we've got Veronica.
Hi, I'm from the Research Neutron Source Heinz Meyer Leibniz in Munich.
Thank you, Veronica. Have I missed anybody on the virtual participants? Shout now if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, sorry, I just joined. Carolyn Creighton, and I'm from Sketch SK Switzerland.
Hi, Carolyn, welcome. Okay, let's go around the room.
Imran Patel, I'm from the Department of Science and Innovation in South Africa.
Welcome, Imran. I forgot already.
Adele. My name's Adele Crudino from the Australian Research Data Commons.
Perfect.
I am Marcos Villaverde. I'm from Spain. I work at the basically due to astrophysics of Andalusia, part of the coordination of the coordination office of the Spanish participation in SKO.
Yeah, fabulous, Marcos.
Hi, I'm Stella Lena, and I'm from the Hartree Centre, which is part of STSE.
Hello, my name is Kit Narins. I'm also from the Hartree Centre as well, which is part of STSE.
Perfect.
Hello, everyone. My name is Simpiwe Madanga. I come from the South African Radio Astronomy Observatory in South Africa.
Wonderful. Well, that gives us a flavour of how international the conference is going to be. I think people all over the world. Thank you very much to those of you joining us in the evening in your time zones. Very much appreciated. Right, we need to get going. It's going to be fairly swift. So if you want any clarifications, by all means, shout during the questions or come and see me afterwards if we don't quite have time to go into everything in detail. We're going to go through planning and preparing your video, and then we're going to talk about, so that's kind of everything that you need to consider, before you get going. And then we're going to talk about things to remember while filming, and we're going to hopefully have time for a bit of a look at the video editor. If we don't, then we can do a Zoom later in the week to go through it if you like. So this isn't going to be exhaustive, and there are obviously, remember that a lot of anything creative you learn by doing, so practicing and making your own mistakes, that's actually a really good way to learn. So the best thing to do is to get out there and start filming and editing things, and then you'll learn a lot more, but hopefully this will help save you some time. So let's go in with the first section. So step one, I've done it as 9 steps. The first step you really need to think about is who are your audience and what are you trying to achieve with your video. So first and foremost, who are you aiming the video at? Is it going to be for the general public? Is it for certain stakeholders? Is it for more than one group? Is it for a particular age group? You need to have a clear vision of that in your mind, because that will kind of guide everything that you do. In the same way as when you're writing something, you want to be thinking about who your audience is. Same thing with a video. And what is your goal? So what are you trying to achieve with the video? Is it for a particular, for example, an event like International Day of Women in Science? So are you trying to convey a message about equality and inclusion? Is it to inform people about a milestone within your organization? Are you just trying to foster engagement, so kind of get a bit of back and forth with your audience? Just think about what your purpose is. Like, why are you making the video? You're not just making content for the sake of making content, because that's just using up your time. You need to have like your purpose in mind. So those are fairly self-explanatory, hopefully. Step 2, once you decide on your audience and your goals, that will help you to decide which platforms you should use. So how are you going to reach that audience that you've identified? Could be on your own website, your organization's website, maybe via the social media channels that you've got. Which ones, if so, because obviously different age groups and on different channels. Maybe you want to do it for internal communications. Maybe it's for a recruitment campaign or a specific event even. So think about the purpose of your video, and then where it will have the most impact for that goal and that audience that you've already identified. So for instance, if it's a recruitment video, maybe it would work best on LinkedIn, but also at a jobs fair. So you'll be using those 2 kind of platforms to deliver it. So once you've decided those 3 things, that will help you to choose your format. There are various types of videos that you can make. It might be a formal interview, so you're just question and answer with someone sort of sitting and like a talking head. Might be an explainer where you kind of incorporate some other content to explain something that's particularly complex. Will there be people in it? Will there be no people in it? Are you just going to use visuals and have text on the screen, or maybe a voiceover? So that's what type of video you're going to create. What kind of filming style do you want to do? That's going to depend a lot on your audience and your platform. So do you want it to be very informal, in which case you might choose to do kind of box pop style interviews where you just grab someone on the go and it's not all very set up, it's much more casual? Or is it going to be more of a kind of news style, where you've got a background and someone speaking to the camera or speaking off camera? So think about how you want it to look in that sense. The orientation, portrait or landscape, will be probably decided by which platform you want to use. So if you're doing something, for example, for Instagram stories, you'll want to film in portrait. If you're primarily wanting to put something on YouTube, maybe you want to do it in landscape. The length of it is another thing to consider. So are you creating a Hollywood masterpiece that's going to be 3 hours long? Probably not. You're probably going to keep it fairly short, maybe up to 5 minutes. but you might want to create something really short, 30 seconds, maybe a minute long for social media. So have that in mind so that you're not kind of creating reams of content that you then aren't going to use. Just have a vague idea of what kind of length you're aiming for. And then what language will you use? So for instance, in our output, we have a very international organization. We like to reflect that with sometimes people using their own language. So we end up with a multilingual video, but just have it in mind so that you know when you're interviewing people which language you want them to speak in. Okay. Just a note on orientation. So I mentioned that you might want to film either portrait or landscape. This is something that we did for Instagram earlier this year, and we filmed it in portrait because it was for Instagram stories primarily. If you then want to adapt it for use on channels where landscape is primarily the orientation that's used, you can do that, and we'll look at how to do that in the video editor and just stick a background on it, and it keeps all the content that you've got in the portrait screen, but just means that it's more easily viewed on other channels. So at this point, you'll be wanting to consider the negatives, so the limitations that you have. Everyone has limitations. We're not all doing this full time. We have to do other things within our jobs. So be realistic is the main thing I can advise, and allow more time than you first anticipate. So you might think I'm only making a minute-long video. I can definitely make that within a day. It doesn't just depend on you and your own time constraints. It depends on other people as well. You know, plans get cancelled, weather can affect things, people can get sick, and you have to move your filming. So just bear that in mind. You need to consider whether you've got access to the people and the locations that you want. And if not, can you get a workaround in place? So for instance, if I wanted to film some colleagues in South Africa where we have an SKO site, it's not really logistically going to be possible for me to fly all the way to South Africa to get some video content. So I might ask one of my South African colleagues to film it, or to film themselves maybe and send it to me. So that's a good, easy workaround. And then obviously budget. Do you have the kind of tools that you need? Are you going to need to travel? Do you have the budget to do that? If not, then yeah, just think about some workarounds there as well. For example, if you can't afford lighting, like this equipment that we'll look at later, try and use natural lighting. So face people towards a window is the simplest way to get really good lighting on someone's face. If you can't afford to get a tripod, can you attach your phone to something sturdy and just put it in the right place? You know, silly little workarounds like that are actually perfectly effective if you just want to save some budget. Okay, so you've thought about your constraints, and then you can go on to step 5, which is when you start to visualize what your video will look like. So you can either just do this in your head, I mean, it depends, everyone works in a different way, and start to visualize it mentally, or you can actually storyboard it and sketch it out on a piece of paper, on your computer. What kind of elements are you seeing in your video? For instance, are there going to be interviews? If so, how many are you aiming for? Who are those people going to be? Where are you going to be filming them? Why have you chosen those people is a really good thing to think about as well. So we're always trying to focus on EDI and why we're giving platforms to certain voices. You need to consider what your audience might want to see. So to use the example we used before, if it's International Day of Women and Girls in Science, they're probably going to want to hear from a woman. And then also any political factors that you have to consider. So here we have a very international membership. We have many different member states, and we want to kind of give parity to that. We don't always want to be hearing from people from the same country. So just another thing to consider. That will all depend obviously on your particular organisation. Extra footage. So as well as interviews, which you may want to include, you'll need to gather some B-roll, maybe some images, still images and animations, or other things that exist kind of independent of your own filmmaking. So B-roll is all the stuff that you show in the over the top, basically. So when someone's talking, it's all the stuff that has no sound but just makes it more visually interesting. So shots of buildings, shots of technology, shots of people chatting, that kind of stuff. And it's always useful to have because it covers a lot of edits when you come to the editing process. It makes it look more visually interesting and also just sleeker. And then do you want a script? So some videos will have a script. You might need to get that approved by various people. So something to think about at this stage. And for all of this, will you need the help or permission of other people? So for example, if you're here at Parry filming people doing talks because you want to gather some B-roll, it's good practice to ask permission from whoever's giving the talk. And if they say no, then film a different talk. That's just polite, obviously. In certain settings, you'll need to ask permission to film on the site itself. So just be careful about that. And then a good tip is to gather more footage than you actually need. So if you're filming a pan of a building, for example, you might not notice it at the time, but somebody might appear in the background and you don't actually want to use that shot. So if you've done two, then the second shot might be cleaner. So it's just a good thing to take a couple of shots of each thing that you're filming. Or if you wobble the camera or something you haven't noticed at the time, it's always good to have a backup. Okay. So an example. What I didn't mention at the start is there is the option to film your own video while you're attending Parry, whether you're doing it virtually or here in person. So if you'd like to do that, do grab me at the end or drop me a message on the Slack channel. If we use that as an example to go through our first 5 steps, we've decided on our audience is going to be the general public, because the conference is about public awareness of research infrastructures. And so our aim is to explain Parry to the public. So that's the goal. We decided to use Twitter in this example because it's our biggest channel. It certainly is at the SKAO. So that's the easiest way to reach the biggest number of people. For the format, we've decided to do a Q&A with participants. So we're going to do some informal vox pops in English. We're going to shoot it landscape because that just looks generally better on Twitter when it's previews on Twitter. And we're going to keep it to around a minute because people on Twitter have no attention span. The constraints obviously are we only have 3 days because the conference is only 3 days long. So we need to get our skates on. And the components, we've decided on a few vox pops, maybe one of the organisers and some attendees to see how they're enjoying it. Some nice shots of SKAO HQ, some shots of talks happening, and an image with the event poster. So there are our components. So we've started to visualize what this video is going to look like. Okay. Any questions so far? We can pause there. Maybe type in the chat or unmute yourself if you're attending virtually and you have a question on these early steps. Don't see any. Anybody in the room? Everything clear so far? Okay, you're all very quiet. We'll plow on then. So filming and editing. This is all some tips to, for you to get the footage that you need and then also to make it look nice. Just want to go through a bit of equipment. Hopefully I'm zoomed in enough on the camera for people to zoom myself a bit more if you're attending virtually. If you've just got a smartphone, you can do plenty, right? Nowadays, particularly iPhones, they're just set up to make videos all by themselves. But there are certain bits of equipment which will help make your life easier and make the finished product look a bit more professional. They're not particularly expensive, most of them. So if if you're filming primarily on a smartphone, then you will probably want a tripod. We use a monopod. So I'm just going to hold it up for the people. You can see, hopefully, on the video that is not a traditional tripod in the sense that it doesn't use as much floor space, but it's equally stable. So that's a good option to have because you can set it up in areas where you're quite tight. You can also get these mini tripods. Hopefully you can see this. And they have bendy legs, so you can attach them. If you're on the go, these are really good because they're super light. You can chuck them in your backpack and then you just attach them to a chair or something and have the person sit in front of you, and really easy. What you will need, no matter which type of tripod you choose, is a smartphone adapter, which is what's on the top of here. And that is what you can attach your smartphone to. They don't generally come included with the tripod, so just make sure that you get that, otherwise you won't be able to attach the phone. A gimbal. This is a gimbal. Hopefully you can see that if you're virtual as well. It's an on-the-go stabilizer. So you attach the phone up here and it all locks. And then when you're moving around, it creates a nice smooth effect rather than kind of juddery if you're doing a walking and filming thing. I don't find them particularly easy to use. It takes a lot of YouTube tutorials. Yeah, that when it's actually all powered up, it doesn't swing around like that. It goes smoother. And you can zoom in and out and stuff. They're not the most intuitive things. They do take a bit of practice, but they do, if you're planning on moving around and filming at the same time, then they do stabilize that camera shake that you get, when you're walking and holding a camera. So worth, if you're techie minded, worth spending some time to see if you can work out how to use it. If anyone wants to work out this one during the conference, you're very welcome. And then we've got microphones. This is actually probably the best thing for you to invest in initially, because your smartphone is going to be okay in low noise environments close up to your subject if you're doing an interview, but it's going to be fairly rubbish in any other situation. It's going to pick up a lot of background noise, and that's just going to make it difficult for people when they're listening to your video. Very, very cheap and easy is the traditional wired lapel mic. Just clips onto your interviewee there. You get an adapter for this to plug into your smartphone depending on what make you've got for the other end, and then you've got a wire running between you and the interviewee. The downside obviously is that's a bit of a trip hazard and it does tend to become tangled, but the sound quality is brilliant on a wired mic. The alternative is to get a wireless microphone, which is what this is. So again, that bit just clips onto your interviewee. That goes on their back pocket, so it's hidden, and you only have a nice thin wire. So that's a bit more discreet. And then the receiver, it pairs via Bluetooth. The receiver and another adapter clips into your phone, and you just pair the two. So that is good if you're wanting to be a bit more mobile with the person, perhaps. These are more expensive. So yeah, I mean, everything varies, but it's worth checking. Martha?
What about using a headset?
Yeah, you could do that, but but then the person it doesn't look so good on the video if someone's got a headset on.
Okay.
It is an option. If you're doing a Zoom interview, for instance, then yeah, that might look more natural. But if you were doing an interview here, just sort of in the corridors, it would look a bit weird if someone had it's probably better to go with a mic of some description. And then lighting. This is what we use. Hopefully you can see it. It's on a tripod. It's just an LED light, and you can adjust it's battery powered.
Quick question.
Yeah, it's not working.
So with the LED, does it have less reflection? I know, for example, with these other lights, you usually see it in person's spectacles and stuff like that, or on the...
So that'll be how you angle it as well. So you need to be careful with the positioning of your lights. So yeah, you don't want to get a reflection in someone's glasses, or on a background if you've got a reflective background. So I think these would still reflect. Yeah. So you just need to angle the person carefully. So when we come to discussing how to set up your interviews and stuff, that'll be something definitely to consider. That's the bonus of natural lighting, is much better than having a very bright light shining in someone's eyes as well for your interviewee, because it's quite blinding sometimes. Yeah, that one's not working, but if you can adjust like the warmth of it, so you can have a cool tone or a warm tone, and you can adjust the brightness as well. So they're pretty flexible. You can just get these on Amazon or whatever you use to buy your technology. The alternative is this, you can see it in the picture, a selfie, I think they're called a selfie ring light. This is what the influencers use if they're doing their makeup tutorials. It's not ideal if you're at any great distance because they tend not to be very strong, and the quality, judging by the reviews on them, is very, very variable. I've not yet found one that I would be happy to purchase. If any of you discover one that's good, please let me know. But that's another option. The bonus of those is that it evenly lights, because it's a ring and you've got the camera in the center. So you don't have to have two separate tripods, one for your camera and one for your light. So there is a benefit, but it's useless if it's not strong enough. So just something to consider. Right, let's get on with filming. So when it comes time to film, assuming you're doing some interviews, these are just a few tips to kind of make sure that it goes as smoothly as possible. If there's a formal setup, so if you've got like a tripod and maybe a background of some kind, make sure you arrange it all beforehand so that you're not fiddling with things and things aren't working, and it just makes you more calm as well. When your interviewee arrives, just take a few moments to settle them in. Explain what you're trying to achieve with the video, so that's the purpose that you set out before, and give them some guidance, like, for instance, keep your answers to just a few sentences, look into the camera or look off camera, whichever one you decided as being appropriate for the video. Maybe you want them to include the question in their answer, so they'd say things like, instead of going, yeah, I'm really enjoying Parry, they'd say, oh no, wait, no, that's not a good example. So if you say, why are you here at Parry today? They don't just go to attend a video conference. They'd say, I'm here at Parry today to attend a video conference. Just better when you actually come to editing, so there's some context around the question. So yeah, if you give people a indication as well of what you want them to say, kind of, obviously we're not putting words in people's mouths, but if you're asking them a question and you've got a specific kind of point in mind that you want them to make, it's worth mentioning that to them so that then they can form their answer around that. Otherwise they might go completely off piste and you don't really get the content that you want. So once you've done that and your interview is kind of settled, check that your lighting is okay. So as Simply Way mentioned, make sure there are no like massive reflections, make sure there's no dark shadow on one side of their face because that can look quite sinister, which presumably is not what we're going for. You need to test your sound. So get your interviewee to just introduce themselves and then play it back on your phone just to make sure that even if you're not using a microphone, make sure that your phone is recording sound. That will also tell you if you've got a mic on them and it's quite close. Normally you would put it sort of just below the collarbone. Some people have very booming voices and that's a bit too close. So if you test the sound and discover that this person is a bit loud for the microphone, you can move it a bit further down and you'll just get a better sound quality. So it's always good to test your sound. And finally, perhaps most obviously, but it's easy to forget, check that your lens doesn't have a massive fingerprint on it, which mine does at the moment. Give it a polish. With smartphones, it's just always going to happen. They get covered in fingerprints and it will make your footage all blurry and horrible. And then just a little tip, often people say, oh, can we do a practice? You'll ask them a question and they'll say, oh, can we practice that answer? That's fine, but I would start rolling the camera at that point because often people's first answer is their most natural one. And then you've got it with that, but don't tell them that you're rolling the camera because then they'll be way more natural. As soon as the camera turns on, people tend to clam up. So just a good tip to remember. And then you want to film some B-roll. So yeah, gather, as we discussed before, gather some shots of buildings, of people talking, of meetings in progress. If you're filming kind of technology stuff, get some nice close-ups. Try to get a mix of wide shots and close-ups. This is our photographer. Hello, come on in. Try to get a nice mix of wide shots and close-ups because then it's just more visually interesting when you're putting it together. And the more variety you get, the nicer your video will look. So that's actually the only slide really on filming. Hopefully that's adequate. You all know how to use the video camera, I presume. It's not much more complex than that. It's just about planning ahead. Right, we're on to step 7. I'll just check if there are any questions at this point. Anybody attending virtually got a question? We're all good? Okay. So in a minute, we're going to look at the video editor. But I'll just talk you through the steps first so that it makes sense when we actually look at it. I do need to, I need to speed up a bit as well. So first of all, you're going to gather all your content. So you're going to create what's called an asset library. So you'll import all the stuff that you filmed. You get it from your phone onto your laptop if you're using a laptop, or if it's just on your phone, that's fine as well. And you're going to also gather anything that you want to supplement it with. So that might be stuff that colleagues have got, stuff from media kits, maybe stuff that you found on public websites. Just make sure that you check the usage terms so that you don't get sued. But a lot of organizations, for example, NASA, they have a lot of stuff on their website that you're welcome to actually use as long as you credit them. So it's worth checking if you want to kind of create a bit more variety. Once you've imported your clips, you'll just want to check that the video editor is in the correct orientation. So if you filmed in portrait, make sure it's not set to landscape because it'll just expand all your clips and it'll look a mess. And then you'll put your clips in the order that you want and you'll edit each one. And we'll look at how to do that shortly. But that's a good process. Import them, put them in order and clip them. After you've done that basic step, you're going to make it look pretty. So you can add transitions and graphics, which we'll look at in a moment as well. And this is just where you can play around and see what looks good. I'd advise not putting too many different types of graphics and transitions. You know, you don't want it to dissolve and then flash and then slide. It will look chaotic. So just keep it as simple as possible. It'll look sleeker and more professional. You're going to add some music. That is the quickest way. I don't know why this is the case, but as soon as you put music onto a video, it just suddenly seems like a proper video. So highly recommend adding some music. There are various options for this. You can use built-in audio libraries. So for example, in Rush, which we'll look at in a minute, or if you're using DaVinci Resolve or whatever you decide to use, they have built-in audio libraries which you can use for free. You can also buy them externally from various platforms. So which one we use is called Audio Jungle, and for that you buy an individual license. So you just buy one track, you just buy a license for that one track. Or you can buy subscriptions where you get access to sort of an entire content library for a certain amount per month. And there are also free libraries online. Just be careful again with the usage terms, check what you're allowed to do with them and not do with them. The European Southern Observatory is one that I put here because they've got a big library of kind of spacey, eerie music that might be quite useful depending on what you're making a video of. So yeah, lots of different options for your video. But yeah, again, be mindful of copyright and licensing terms. I don't want any of you to be sued. Right, we're going to get to know the video. So let's hopefully stop sharing that and start sharing. No, that's not what I wanted to do. Start sharing Rush. Okay, right, hopefully you can all see this video editor screen. I can no longer see the chat, so if you can't, then please shout verbally. So I'm just going to give you a quick whiz around Rush so that you understand the basics. I don't know if any of you have downloaded it, but the principles will be similar on other video editors. It's just about working out where the buttons are, basically. So first of all, you'll create a new project. And you'll give it a name. Mine I called Untitled Sequence 1. So you'll give it a more appropriate name than that. And then you'll just add your media. So have all your media in a folder, which is labeled so you can find it really easily. In this case, Parry videos. And then you just add, I'll just delete these things actually so that we can actually show you how we do it. You'll just choose some shots to add. We're going to have some flags. We're going to have an interview with Matt and an HQ cam. And then it adds it all onto your timeline like that. Can you see those? Yep. Oh, sorry for the people here in the HQ. It is slightly blocked by the closed captioning. Don't think I can amend that. So the first thing you'll want to do is put your clips in order that you can't quite see what I'm doing. Let me just try and. Okay, you can just about see the top of that clip, can't you? So the first thing you'll do is just clip it. So you do that with this. Can you see how that's the kind of yellow bar? You can just crop like that. The alternative is you just put your cursor in a place and click the clip, the scissors on the left. And then you end up with a clip and you can delete the rest of your clip. So you've just got a nice little snippet of an interview. So once you've clipped the bits that you want, you can move things around. So maybe you want to start with a panning shot of the observatory. And then afterwards, you'll have a bit of interview and then you'll have some flags. That's the basic moving clips around. One thing you'll notice when I play this one, there's a bit of sound. It was a bit windy. So one thing you can do is to separate the audio out and just delete it for that one track. So that's now just a B-roll. There's no sound on that. That's important so that you don't have kind of random sounds that you don't really want when you only want the visuals. A thing to understand in any video editor is layers. So this is layer 1, let's say, where all the clips are at the moment. Whatever you put on top of that is going to take precedence. It's going to be on top. It's like a cake. So that's going to be what you see. So if that's just a graphic, then that's fine. It'll only show up the words or the graphic on top of your clip. If the two clips are the same size, then the clip that goes on top you will see. So here at this part, you can see that there's Matt, who's the guy being interviewed, is below, but the flags are on top. And when we play that, it'll click. You can still hear Matt, but we start seeing the flags. And that's really important when you want someone to be speaking underneath a shot, right? So you want to put B-roll on top, but you want the sound to continue. That's how you create it, is you create a layer. And you literally create it by dragging up. Oh,
how many layers?
Oh, I don't know. I've never reached the limit. So it just loads.
So with this, you basically say you've got whatever visual you want, but you've got this person almost seeming as though they're narrating.
Exactly.
So in another context, you will be talking about something related to the site, for example,
Yeah.
and you want to actually show that.
So yeah, I think so. Yeah, exactly. So actually, in this interview, I'm not sure if I picked the right part, but he says it's really great to host Parry here at SKOHQ because we've got a working infrastructure in the Lovell telescope, which is what you're seeing on the screen now, and then you'll have a shot of the Lovell telescope. So yeah, it makes perfect sense to have whatever you're seeing on the screen relate to what the person is talking about. Don't just have kind of random shots on there. That's a good thing to consider. Thank you, Cynthia, for that point. Okay, so that's the layers. Is that making sense so far? Hopefully. Okay, so we've imported the content. We've learned how to snip the bits that you want. We've learned about layers. We've separated out the audio. If you want to mute an entire channel, you do that over here. Hopefully you can see. So if you mute that whole channel, there'll be no sound on it, and if you unmute it, there will. If it's an entire channel, so an entire line of just B-roll, of just background shots, you can just mute the entire channel. We can't do that on the main one because it would also mute our interviewee. So in that case, we separate the audio and just delete it. Now we can start making a bit of where I said about making it pretty. We can add some transitions and graphics and whatnot. So in Rush, I can't quite see it on my screen. Here we are. So you might want to do something as simple as fade in and fade out. That's very simple to do. So you just select your clip. You can tell it's highlighted because it's yellow, and then you would just fade in. And that's added it there. There we go, now we fade in. And you might want to fade out at the end. We just add another one. The weird thing it does is sometimes add it on both sides, which you don't want, so you can just delete that. So it's just about getting to know your timeline and the different elements, but you can actually see it. It's a bit small here on the big screen. I'm not sure how it is for you attending virtually, but you can, when it's on your own screen, you'll be able to see the elements much more clearly. And then you can see that now fades out, just looks a bit snazzier. We can add some graphics. So if you're in the free version of Rush or the free version of any editor, you'll have fewer options than if you're in a paid version, but no matter, there's still plenty of options. So you just pick one that you like, you add it, it's gone up here, so let's put it over here. You can just drag and drop, very simple. And then you just click on it, click on your graphic, not working for me. Oh yeah, highlight it, sorry, click on it. And then you just type in what you want to do, Parry 2022, for example. It's quite cool because you can adjust things like the color of the line. So if you've got a brand color, for instance, you can change it to the color of your brand. You just put in the RGB code or whatever you've got, and make it just look a bit more like your own organization's colors. And then these are animated, so they look quite snazzy. They don't just kind of appear as blank text and then they drop away. So you can add those throughout. Maybe you could have some explanatory stuff on, like, I don't know, 100 participants from 30 countries or whatever. And you can just add those as you go. You could add the name of a person and their title, just with a different type of graphic. So that's quite an easy thing to do. And then audio. So we click over here and you've got, oh, sorry, no, you can click add here actually. And you can add some audio. You'll get the inbuilt audio library. And then you just pick one that you like the sound of. It's quite chill. So I think we'll have that one. And then you can just add it. You'll see it's not as long as the video, but that's fine. You can just duplicate it a few times. And you'll just want to check that they kind of link together properly. There's not like a long period of silence in between the two. And then you can just make it the same length as your video. And then it will just play throughout. An obvious issue here is that is going to be playing at a certain volume. So if you open your audio taskbar over here on the right, that's playing at volume 50 at the moment, which is quite loud. And when Matt starts talking in the interview, it's going to drown him out. If you pay for a proper video editor, as in one of the expensive ones, there is something called auto ducking, which will automatically recognize when there is a human speaking and will lower the music in response. That's not usually available on the free editors, so I'm just going to show you quickly how to achieve that, particularly if you're using Rush. First thing to do is generally lower the audio volume across the board. So I would suggest putting it down to about 30 in this case, because it's just quite loud. So if you do that here on all the ones that you've duplicated. And then when it comes to where Matt's speaking, we'll crop it. So we'll snip it with the scissors. And at the other end, where he finishes speaking, we'll snip it, and that just puts a break in the audio. And then the bit where he's speaking, I would lower it by about 2/3. So if you take that down to about 10, I'll just do that one for now so that we can use it as an example. Now, when you play between the two, it's going to be quite a violent drop between 30 and 10, which you might hear, which sounds terrible. So you can fake this it kind of drops it off gradually by adding a transition again. So if you add a dissolve transition there, it'll soften that break. It's much softer. So it's not so much of a, this clip has actually still got me asking Matt the question, but you would obviously crop that off. It's much more of a gentle decline in the audio, in the music. So it just sounds a bit more professional. So that trick is just to add a dissolve between the two levels of audio. Hopefully that makes sense. And then one final thing I want to show you is how to just add a background. So if you film something in portrait and you want to adapt it for landscape, we can add another graphic, which is just in Rush, it's just called solid. It's in transition graphics, and it's just called solid. So if you add that to your timeline, and now remember what I said about the layers, whatever's on this main layer, is everything above it is seen. So let's say that this one is actually in portrait, like that. Put it over the background. So imagine that that's a portrait thing that you filmed for Instagram. You can put a solid background behind it and change the color of the background over here in graphics. So again, if you've got a nice brand color, like a nice bright pink, set it like that. Or if you've got a picture or something that you want to put behind it, you just do that and then add your portrait clip. And then when you export it, it will be a landscape video. Does that make sense? Okay. Sorry, that's a bit of a whiz around Rush, but hopefully those are some of the basics. The more you play with it, the more you'll get to know it. When you want to export it, you literally just go to share. You can share directly to these platforms, or you can just choose a resolution to export into and then just save it to your computer and share it by yourself, whichever you prefer, but you just export it. It'll tell you the size of the file, that's quite a big file, but you can just choose what suits your needs. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing because we are rapidly running out of time and go back to the PowerPoint.
What's that platform again?
The video editor, that's called Adobe Rush. So you can get a free version. Sorry, I'll just answer this simple question. Yeah, you can get a free version. You just have to create an Adobe ID, I think. And then the free version has some limited features. I think it's one of the limitations is that you can't sync, it doesn't sync across your devices or something, and there's an export limit of a certain amount of gigabytes. But if you're just wanting to get to know it and see if you like it, there's also one called DaVinci Resolve, which my colleague Joe recommends, which is another free one, which might have more available in the free version, worth checking out anyway. But if you're going to get serious about video editing, then I would recommend Adobe Premiere Pro, which is the one that we use. It's a lot more complex, but it's also a lot more versatile in many ways. So Rush is great, but it does have some limitations.
Is Rush the free version of Premiere Pro then?
It's essentially not quite. So Premiere Pro, it looks quite different. So I had to learn how to use Rush, even though I know how to use Premiere Pro. So you can get a paid version of Rush, which is, yeah, there's two bits. So it's just, Rush is more adept at mobile editing. If you want to do it on your smartphone, it's more designed for that, whereas Premiere Pro would be extremely fiddly to use on a phone. Don't know if you can use it on a phone. Marcos?
Yes, sorry if I missed it, but can you include a photo, an image,
yes, you can,
and add some animations to that photo? For example,
like to move across it or something?
Yes, to move across.
I'm not sure if you can, I think you can pan and zoom. I'm not sure if you can in the free version. You can certainly add an image, and then there's a tool called pan and zoom, which literally just automatically moves across it. So yes, is the short answer. How much you can do that in the free version, I'm not sure. So it's worth exploring, but you can definitely add the image. I'm just going to go to the virtual chat. What's the resolution of the export files? You can choose. So you can choose like 1080 full HD. And then you can choose that for YouTube or Facebook, which is a slightly smaller file than if you just do the kind of automatic export. Can you create GIFs with Rush? As far as I know, you can't, but I'm willing to be proven wrong if somebody discovers how to do it. You could create a video and then turn it into a GIF via another tool. I'll have a look into that. I'll try and find out an answer for you, Megan. Catriona, do we have any tips for filming landscape B-roll, e.g. how to make buildings look appealing? So some people might try and do a kind of arty angle. So you might want to kind of get down closer to the ground, looking up at it. Sometimes that makes a video look appealing. Some videos, sometimes make a building look appealing. Some buildings just aren't going to look appealing regardless. So it might be better not to film them, but to film something else, maybe something inside the building, or yeah, maybe there's some drone footage. So we've got drone footage of the HQ, which we use, which is quite cool. So sometimes you might have to just think outside the box if something isn't looking so pretty. But yeah, doing different angles, panning, that's just a bit of movement to make it look more interesting. Hopefully that answers the question, Catriona. Marcus, another one yet?
Yes, one last question.
Sure.
If you want to add subtitles.
That's the next slide.
Okay.
That is the final slide.
Sorry.
Yes. No, you've taken us there. Brilliant. Right, slide 9 is make it accessible. So this is super important, obviously for people that have hearing disabilities, but also for non-native speakers, the language that the video is in. And also many people, if they're watching on social media, particularly don't like to have the sound on. I think something like 80% of people watching videos on Facebook keep it muted. So if you haven't got subtitles, you're just losing a vast amount of audience there. Now, all the methods that I've suggested here do require some tweaking, but they should save you some time. There's loads of stuff about best practice for accessibility online, so I'd encourage you to go and research it properly. But just as some pointers, what you want to create are closed captions. That means that they're timed to your video and can be toggled on or off. So it's not just a transcript, it's actually in the right place, and it creates a separate file. So you've got a video file, and then you've got what's called an SRT file, which is a subtitle file. The way that we do it is we upload to YouTube. YouTube has got auto captions, so it uses AI to detect what's being said, and it will automatically transcribe and time it for you, so put it in the right place on your video. It's only available in the languages on the screen at the moment. If your language isn't there, you can transcribe them yourself and do the timings yourself within YouTube, and then you can just download the SRT file, and that means you can upload it. So there's a lot of downloading and uploading going on, but you can then upload it to, for example, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook, all accept SRT files, and then your subtitles will appear there. If you've got loads of videos and that would be exceptionally time consuming for you to do, you can outsource it. We've used one called rev.com, which was recommended by our Australian colleagues, and is quite life-changing. It's not particularly expensive if they're short videos, and you can still tweak it before downloading the file. So sometimes, if it's very technical stuff, or if it's terms that are very specific to your organization, they won't get it right. So you'll need to go in and just edit it, but that's one option as well. And then if you're using something like Instagram Reels or Stories, there are auto caption functions within that, and you can just tweak them as well. So they're just a few options for captions. Just another question from Joe. How long does it take you to make a short video? How many do you make a week or a month? I haven't made any in ages actually, but when I did do them, it can take anything from 1 day to several days. It depends if you're talking about the entire process. If it's just the video editing, you could probably make a short video in a couple of hours. Once you know what you're doing, half the time is just getting it approved and that sort of thing. It's not, the actual video editing can be quite rapid once you know how to use the video editor, but the key is to practice a lot so that you feel comfortable with it, and then it will become much easier. We used to make probably one every month, but as I said, it's not my primary job. It's sort of on the side of all the other stuff, so it's not I'm not making them every week. I'll try and make one while I'm at Parry, but yeah, let's see how that goes. Sorry, Joe, that's a bit of a vague answer, but it really depends. It depends how much footage you've got and everything else. Elaine asks, for outdoor filming, do we need to record an audio separately and add audio as a layer after? I wouldn't say so. I would say you could just use whatever if you're just filming it on your microphone. It depends what kind of sound you're after, I suppose. You could do that and then match the two up. So in Premiere Pro, certainly if you've created a separate audio file, I see, so it's to make better audio quality. If you're filming outside and interviewing someone, use a microphone, and then that creates one file within the video. That's fine. You don't need to create a separate audio file. If you decide to create a separate one somehow, then you can marry the two up in the video editor. As you've seen, you get two tracks. You get an audio track and a video track, and you just make sure that they match. So hopefully that answers your question, Elaine. Do let me know if not. Any other questions in the room? Any other questions virtually? Seems not. Oh, someone's speaking. No? Okay, if any of you would like to practice by making a video, whether you're virtual or here in person, whether it's Parry related or not Parry related, please do drop me a message on Slack or by email, that's fine. And because we would like to show any that you do make during the closing ceremony, because it's not a ceremony, the closing session. So yeah, if you'd like to do that, or if you want any more guidance on anything, just drop me a line and we can certainly work that out in the next few days. But thanks so much for coming, and thank you for all your questions and for being so engaged. I hope you've enjoyed it. And that's it. You are free to go. Awesome, anyway.
Well, first it's just to say thanks for making it simple.
Okay.
It makes sense.
Okay.
And, of course, I understand that one has to then do it,
sure,
and sort of get familiar with the platforms. But at least you presented it in a way that one can follow.
Okay, great.
If it's not something one has done. Will we get access to this presentation?
I've created a handout for you, which I'm going to put on Slack. If you're not on Slack, let me know and I'll put it in an email for you. But yeah, I created a handout that basically summarizes the steps, so you can just go through and tick each one off as you're making your videos. So hopefully that will be enough. If you get the handout and think this isn't enough information, let me know and I can send you the slides.
Does that handout have the equipment on it?
The pictures of the equipment.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I can add the pictures of the equipment, that's fine. Okay, a few people aren't on Slack, so I will send them via email.
I was going to ask if you also add them to the email list.
Yes, sure. Basically, okay, yeah, I'll send it to all your emails. That's probably the easiest. Good. I've timed this perfectly. Well done. I'm releasing them now. Thank you so much for coming, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good day, evening. Night.